All right, shall we begin?
Ready?
Good morning. Welcome to all of you who are with us this morning for our webinar. I am Joel Shoemaker, one of the co-principal investigators with CREATE, the Center for Renewable Energy Advanced Technological Education. And this morning, we're going to hear from Scott Liddicoat, who is a retired high school science teacher, retired from Green Bay, Wisconsin, just this past year, taught 37 years in high school. He's been working with CREATE since 2015, and a lot of the lesson plans that are available on the CREATE website have his name as the author. I've been working with Scott for a number of years, and we have done some trainings together and also worked on some of the lesson plans. And I think you'll find that Scott is very committed to making sure that teachers have the information and the resources that they need in order to teach renewable energy and related topics. So I think you'll find this a very useful and interesting topic as he surveys the lesson plans that we have available on the CREATE website and talks about what the features are and how they can be used. CREATE is a center funded by the National Science Foundation and dedicated towards providing teachers at high school and community college level with support to teach renewable energy. We do have some upcoming webinars in addition to the one we're doing today. Gabby, if you want to flip to that slide. So we have some webinars based on things that instructors, teachers have been doing with the disruption to the education system from COVID. And some of these are trends that have been ongoing in education for a while, but particularly with what's happened over the last couple of years. Chris Miller will be talking about some of the developments that he's made with talking about energy storage and batteries. And Jim Pytel will talk about the things that he's done with flipping the classroom, having a YouTube channel with lots of information and lectures online available to his students and doing more hands-on in the classroom. And Eric Knispel will talk about biofuels. So Gabby, is there anything else we want to add to that about those webinars?
No, but I will be sending out information on the webinars like I do via email, and they'll also be posted on the CREATE website. So just kind of keep your eye open for those. The only one thing I want to say about the webinar that we're about to do right now is that if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, and then Scott will also let you know if he's going to pause to take any questions, and then I will go ahead and I will mute the microphones in the videos, but you will have the ability to turn your microphones back on if Scott takes time to pause for questions. So that's all I had to add. Scott, you ready to go?
I think so. And
all right, then I will stop the share and you can start your video or start your.
Very good. All right, and we should see the NSF logo here, and I hope that we will have questions. My intent is to leave plenty of time for that, so let's see what we can do here. Let's get started with just to make sure, Gabby, we can see the NSF disclaimer here. Yes?
Yep, you're good. Okay,
I'm good. All right, so we'll start off there, and a little bit about me. Joel covered a little bit here. So longtime high school science teacher, retired in June from Green Bay Southwest High School. And one of the things that kind of brought me into the sphere of CREATE is that I taught a college credit energy class in high school for the last 11 years. And that was an awful lot of fun and very good for me and for my students. And I've been writing lessons and training teachers for 15 years in these different programs. And we'll see a little bit more about those programs here in just a little bit. So our topic for today is teaching resources for energy educators. So let's get underway. Oh, I'm sorry. This slide somehow made its way into my slide deck from, okay, so, all right, here's where we need to be. Okay, so Center for Renewable Energy, ATE, here's our website. And when you go to the website, this is one of the pictures that you'll see. View Teaching Materials is right there. And I put this slide up here intentionally because this is our group that went almost 3 years ago now to Germany. That's me. In the middle here is Ken Walls, who will not be joining us today, but I thought would. This is Joel, of course, over here. Joel is the one who volunteered me for this particular webinar. So I've got a little message for Joel right there. Joel will be talking about this later. Also today, I'm hoping that I don't see her name here, but I don't have all of the participants, but hopefully Jenny Brinker is here. There's Jenny. So several of us went on the Germany trip some years ago. So what are our objectives today? We want to get to know the lessons and the teaching materials posted on the Create website and understand the features available. So in other words, I want to go through what we've got and I want to go through how it works. That's what we'll do today, and rather quickly, I believe. So I believe that most of you know that to access this website, I'm sure you could just Google it or use any search engine to get to it. createenergy.org is the URL that you use to get here. This, I believe, anytime I've gone there, is the very first picture that you'll see, and that's a picture from our Germany trip. There are a couple of different ways to get to the teaching materials. One way is to click on resources. You get the pull-down menu, and it says teaching materials. The other way is to just click on view teaching materials. There's probably other ways to get there, but those are the ways that are on the splash page. And once you go there, you'll get a page that looks like this. And I'm going to bring that paragraph up for us in focus. So it says it tells a little bit about Create. But on the next line, it says our renewable lessons are designed for community college, technical college, and high school use. You're welcome to modify these lessons. And I'm going to stress that throughout this program. You're welcome to modify them. Teaching materials, typically, not in every case, but in almost every case, include instructor guides, student handouts, answer keys, and additional resources. They also include links to the U.S. Department of Energy Literacy Standards and the Next Generation Science Standards. And then the lessons are posted, and the other materials are posted in PDF format so that you can for sure see what the original formatting is like and was intended to be like, and that can be useful to you if you're going to use them, if you're going to print them off and hand them out. But they're also given to you in Microsoft Word format to allow for easy editing. So that's the short version of what's going to happen in the next few minutes. So if you want to be like most virtual students and just put up your icon and walk away and get to the refrigerator, basically I just went through the main themes for my talk in the next little bit right there. It's all right in this first beginning. So to dig a little deeper though, it says select a category to view lessons. So we have lessons that fall into 5 different categories: energy fundamentals, energy management and efficiency, solar PV, bioenergy, and SCADA. And I'm going to ask somebody to speak about what SCADA is because I don't think we right now have any lessons there. I know that's an acronym for something. I haven't written any lessons that fall into that category, so presumably there will be some there soon. So we currently have lessons in 4 different categories. Let's take a brief look at them. Energy fundamentals, we have basic energy lessons, 5 of them, which you would find further down the page, or you can click on the bar that's up above here and it would take you right to them right here, energy fundamentals. We have 3 that currently are under energy management and efficiency, 11 of them that are under solar PV, no surprise there, and 1 under dairy waste, 1 under bioenergy, 1 I wrote called dairy waste to power. So we've got 20 lessons currently on our website, and there are more on the way, and I'm going to talk about that real quickly here. There will soon be a good number more added. When you find a lesson, when you see one of these rectangles, we'll have the title to the lesson and hopefully a picture that's kind of interesting. When you look at a lesson, you'll always find an icon right here. And in this particular case, it's our create icon. That means that the lesson was, if I wrote the lesson, it was written completely through create. And usually it's at the urging of Joel or Ken or someone like me who came up with the idea. That's a create sponsored and written lesson. There are other lessons online or in our grouping that will have this particular icon that says SolarWise. And you might have noticed earlier in my slideshow, I have worked for SolarWise for Schools. That's Wisconsin Public Service Energy Utility. I've worked for them for 15 years doing the very same thing that I'm now doing for Create, training teachers and writing lessons. And we have a nice, really, really nice sharing relationship going on between SolarWise and Create, where SolarWise is using Create lessons and Create is using SolarWise lessons. So we have that icon right there, and also at the bottom of the page there is a gratitude expression of gratitude to WPS for sharing those lessons with me. In addition, we will soon have a bunch more lessons that carry this icon. Currently, they're not there. It says Smart Start right there. And those are lessons that will come on board because of a grant that Jenny Brinker wrote at Northeast Wisconsin Technical College. And let's see, there's Jenny and there's me. We're putting those lessons together. Jenny, I'm going to ask you to say a few words about what those, what the general purpose of the Smart Start program is, and a word or two about what we're up to. We do have Jenny there, I hope. Yes?
Scott, I'm not going to leave you hanging.
Excellent.
Good morning.
Good.
Yeah, thanks a lot for promoting this new certificate program. We're putting together a number of lessons that are all about building automation, and the program is called Smart Start to BAS, which stands for Building Automation Systems. And I'm really happy to have Scott on board because, as you will see if you haven't taken a look at his lessons, they're very comprehensive, grab and use type of material. So excited to share that with you once we have it published. It should be out there by fall of this year. It's 2022 now.
Good.
Thanks, Scott. Go Pack.
All right. Thank you, Jenny. And so here's one that, here's the kind of the nameplate for one of them I've been working on. HVAC and BAS overview. Had a lot of fun putting this together. These lessons will begin to appear. I think we'll start sprinkling them in, I hope, fairly soon. So we had two objectives for today. I'm going to deal with the second one first. So we're going to take a look specifically at the features available within each lesson that make them easy for teachers and students to use. So let's get going here. Let's say you look at a lesson on our website. You like the title, maybe you like the picture. The lesson will have a little bit of an explanation here, a thumbnail, and then below it you'll see it says Student Materials and Instructor Materials, and you can click on those, and that's where the things that we have available to you will appear. And once you do that, if you're doing it for the first time, you'll be asked to sign up, and I hope that this is actually where in the sequence of things that you would have to sign up. But somewhere along the way, if you haven't signed up before and you're going into the lessons, you'll have to sign up, and it's an easy process. And it also doesn't litter up your email box to do this. It's just that we want to be able to keep track of the traffic on the website. So you sign in and you can begin to look at the lessons. Now I want to talk about specifically in the next couple of minutes about the features for the lessons, because I think this is one of the things that makes us really good and unique. It's something that we started doing with the SolarWise lessons, and Ken and Joel and I agreed that this had to be done with the Create lessons that showed up. So the lessons, as was mentioned earlier, they're available as a PDF or Microsoft Word, and this, along with our copyright, which I'll go through in a minute, enables you to alter the document to your specific situation. I can't say this enough. Your classroom is different than the idealized classroom that I had in mind when I wrote the lesson. You will probably have to alter the lesson. I write a long list of questions within the lesson. You might want to decrease the number of questions and add 2 of your own. Whatever it happens to be, we want you to use the lessons and alter them to suit your specific students and circumstances. Can't say that enough. So the lessons, and this took me a while to figure out, the lessons were written and formatted in Word so that they translate into Google Docs easily, understanding that most of our teachers are pretty beholden to Google and Google Docs, this was important for us. So you should find that the lessons translate, maybe not perfectly, but very, very well into a Google Doc. So you're not going to lose like a lot of key features to the document in that process. Maybe they'll translate perfectly, who knows. Every lesson, when you get to a lesson or a teacher's guide, you'll see this. And this is our copyright page. So it'll say, click here for copyright information. And there isn't really much to this. There's a copyright symbol that shows up here. And if you want to know the details of the copyright, you can go into them there. But just let me tell you this. You are welcome to share the material and adapt it, remix it, transform it, build upon the material. If you're just using that material with your students, you don't so much have to do this. But if you share it with a colleague or with another organization, you do have to give original attribution to us and then indicate if any changes were made. So our copyright is intended to be as easy and liberal to use as is humanly possible. We want these lessons used widely. Okay, and then it says you delete this page after reading. So it's intended for you to get rid of this. If you're duplicating the lesson for your students, get rid of the page. Please do. They don't need to know this information. And it's intended that way in part because oftentimes what I try to do with the lessons is put them together so that certain facing pages would be side by side. And you can only find that to be the case if you get rid of the copyright page. There are many lessons where that's the case, where I want things to show up side by side. I want you to know every activity, I believe, is well put together to be used in a face-to-face setting and also a hybrid setting, and many activities can be used in a fully online setting. And that's, I guess, one of the benefits of the experience that I've gone through in the last couple of years is that I believe I've been able to put lessons together that can be used in most of those settings. The lessons are written to enable students to record their information right into the document for digital submission, or if you prefer, you can get rid of the digital prompts and you can run the lesson off and give it to them in hard copy. Okay, so you will find, you click on student materials, there will be an Adobe PDF or Microsoft Word document that pops up. There will be a nameplate for students to complete. There will be the create or other logo for attribution. Our copyright symbol is shown there too. And that's because sometimes, and it's becoming more and more common, that if you want duplicating services to do your document, you have to be able to prove, you may be in a situation where you have to prove that you have copyright permission to duplicate this. So we put that icon right there, so you shouldn't have trouble there. Every lesson will have a title, of course. There will be some kind of an introduction to the lesson always. Then there will be a procedure. In this case, there's not so much procedure, or the lesson comes next. And then every lesson has summary questions, and there may be questions embedded right in the lesson, particularly if it's a lab activity. So all of these things are waiting there, and I tried to make the lessons as visually attractive as I could. If you look at the instructor materials, you click on instructor materials, you'll get something like this to show up. Looking at a slightly different lesson, there will be an instructor's guide, which I'll go through in just a minute. There will be an instructor guide. In this particular lesson, there is a PowerPoint for teachers to use to introduce the lesson to the students and explain it to them. There's also, in this particular lesson, a short YouTube video that can be used with the lesson. So we try to put all the materials in there that will be of use to you. And finally, at the bottom are the ELS and Ngss standards. And I have to confess, I don't view myself as real good at selecting the standards that apply. And I think in part that is due to the fact that I don't think the standards are particularly well written. But that being the case, I think I did a good job of eliminating any standard that doesn't apply. So if you look at these and you're saying, well, those are way too many standards for only one lesson, I wouldn't disagree with you, but at least I've got it down to the few that you can select from. If it sounded like it might find some way to fit the lesson, I left it in. Okay, so the instructor guide. What would you find with the instructor guide? First of all, at the top of the page, you'll have the title, the grade level, and they almost all say high school and up. The length of the lesson, most of these lessons I've taught. If I haven't, I think I have a pretty good sense of how long they would take. The author is there, and then when it was created, along here with our copyright symbol, there will always be some, for me, what I would say real plainly spoken learning goals that will be right up front. The materials that you need will be right here. There will be an introduction to you for the activity, and it might not always be introduction. It might say like teaching suggestions or something like that. Depending on how the lesson presents itself, I might title that a little bit different, but there's things about here's how I think you might use this lesson, and here are things I think you have to do with this lesson. There will always be, and I'm not seeing what my prompt is here, there will be an answer key. So these are after the lab questions I provided an answer key for. If it's a lab procedure lesson, or if there are questions embedded in the lesson, there will be an answer key there. There might even be sample data in your instructor guide from like when Joel and I did the lab on our own, so that you have an idea of what the data might look like if you do the lab. Okay, so that brings us from features to, let's get to know what some of the lessons are. And there are about 20 of them, and I'll go through them real quickly. And so in other words, what do we have here? We have lessons under these 4 banners, and each lesson, what I guess I tried to do, or what we tried to do, it's either a relevant lab or an active exercise, or it takes an interesting twist on a common topic, which is really usually very interesting for me to find, having taught with Joel and Ken and other people for a long time. I pick up their best ideas and I work them into the lessons. So that's what I'm going to try to emphasize as I go through these lessons. What's the twist? What's the application that's just a little bit different than what you'd see in an ordinary sort of exercise that you might get in a lab book? Our first lesson under energy topics is what's in an energy bill. And as a high school teacher, most students had never seen an energy bill. And so for the first time, students are having their eyes open to something they've probably never seen, and understanding that there are dollar and cents consequences. And they're also getting a look at what some of the energy units are in an energy bill. This lesson in our WPS SolarWise for Schools group is the most used lesson of all. Teachers love to use this bill because they see right away it attracts students. And so I would urge you to take a look at this. And if you find that your local energy bill is significantly different than the one that I've put together here, let me know. I'll help you put together a different one. So reviewing an energy bill. Part 2 of what's an energy bill, I think, is absolutely fascinating. I put this together a couple of years ago, and what students do here is, I put down here that they use cool EPA websites. They use the EPA Power Profiler and the Greenhouse Gas Equivalencies Calculator to calculate how much coal and how many pounds and tons of CO2 goes into their energy bill, and go through an exercise of, if we conserve energy a little bit, here's how much we save of those resources. The third lesson in this sequence is energy conversions and beyond, and they don't have to be used in sequence. You can just pick and choose the lessons. Please do that. This is a more tried and true one. I've got chemistry teachers that I know use this because they want their students to know how to convert units, and the conversions here are to taking a look at how much an energy bill costs per year, how many pounds of coal that the energy bill represents a year, and how many pounds of CO2 students use each year. And so they get introduced to units like BTUs and joules and so on. So conversions in an energy context. This lesson comes up from a couple of years ago, exploring a job in the energy industry. These websites, these sites, I think, are absolutely excellent. There are 4 of them. One is a solar career map, and I forget without looking carefully at what the others are. Jenny knows one of them. There's like energy management website. These are really well done, and you can have your students take a look at what jobs are available in these particular and what careers might be available in different energy vocations. And then the last one in this series is called By the Numbers. And here what I did was went to the NEED website and also the U.S. Energy Information Administration. So this is straight, good, accurate information. Here's a question, ask students to answer it. Here's the answer. And I used this in my energy class. I used these for about 2 months, just a question a day. But you could use them in many different ways, especially the way that I have them categorized. And again, this does a great job of serving to introduce students to what are the energy resources that are currently in use across USA, and why are they located where they are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I keep this, I usually update this about every 2 years by the numbers. So up-to-date energy stats. Let's take a look at energy management. The first lesson here is called What's the Cheapest Watt? And the idea here is to have a number of kilowatt meters available to you and make them available to your students and have them survey appliances at home. So they have a personal connection to what they're doing. And I've used this lesson. Students really like it. They really like it. The next one, when I wrote this lesson many years ago, I didn't think that it would be as interesting to students as it became. It pays to save in your home. And here the pretext of the lesson is it's 5 years down the road and student buys a home. And here are different places in the home that you could improve energy use and save money. And so they research them, they put them on tag board, or you could, I suppose, do a PowerPoint, and then you have an energy expo in your classroom. And the idea is to learn, real importantly, what should come first and what should come second and what should come third when you're looking at energy conservation in the home. Building a passive solar home, again, a real simple lesson, but just really valuable, teaching solar principles in the classroom to students, and just wonderful some of the creative ideas that they come up with. And here you can see the lean-to homes and some of the pictures. They're using a flashlight to mimic where the sun is, to see what it does to the shading profile on the home, and so on. Building a passive solar home, really like that one. Solar PV, we've got 11 lessons, starting with measuring sunlight, the pyranometer, written with Create. And here we have some of our workshop students doing that lesson. That's a tools of the trade using the pyranometer. And so a number of these lessons we're using tools of the trade in the solar industry. Our pyranometer is one of them. The second one, analyzing using the Solar Pathfinder. Love this lesson in my classroom, and I think it's really well done. You get a hold of one of these, and then the teaching materials, and students can understand how you use the Solar Pathfinder, and there's kind of a contest to see which student's solar profile is the best one, and so on. So they do a PV assessment. The next one takes another tool of the trade, use the PV watts calculator. Again, really an interesting lesson, and you guys know this if you've used the PV watts calculator. And just taking a look at this insert down here. This is Madison, Quito, Ecuador, and Barrow, Alaska. And that's the, let's see, constant tilt angle of 20 degrees. So we're changing the azimuth. And so there are a number of activities like this that they go through in assessing PV watts and its application, how much solar energy you can get different places across the globe. Very interesting lesson. So they use the PV watts calculator, which most of you know is a tool of trade. This one is the watts from the sun, and this one I wrote at Ken's urging more than any other because it gets students using the multimeter and doing current and amps and volts measurements. And in Ken's words, students can't do enough of those calculations to get power and using Ohm's law. And there's an interesting twist in this, and they use Ohm's law. No solar PV lesson grouping would be complete without solar, and I just kind of went dark in here, Joel. I'm in the dark. Okay, so that I'm not moving enough to keep the lights on, but that's okay. So solar PV. And here, this is a pretty commonplace lesson, but I packed everything that I've ever learned about silicon that I found interesting into this lesson. And I think it's a great place to start your study of solar PV. Thank you, Joel. The lights are going to come back on for me. All right. Secondly, we've got module performance. So here you can take a classroom, either residential size module or a classroom size module to learn what are the primary effects on module performance. And of course, those are temperature, irradiance, and shading. And so this is another one that we do. Thank you again, Joel, for doing that. And so we do this with an instructional size module as well. So we wrote it 2 different ways. Another one that I'm surprised has taken on kind of a life of its own. I wrote this lesson during my PV training. Students understand a little bit about what solar panels look like. What are the other pieces of equipment that need to be in place in order to bring solar PV to life? And so it starts with a real simple system, and then we make a bigger one and bigger one. The idea is to take these different icons, which are kind of rough, so they look a little bit like engineering icons, and put them into a flow chart in order, and then along the way they learn the different balance of system pieces of equipment that go to into a PV system. This is one Joel and I did a couple of years ago, battery and charge controller lab, and the idea here is to learn the functions of a charge controller. And real interesting lab. Joel might, if you have questions, you might want to ask Joel a little bit more about that a little bit later on. Really good lab. And batteries, of course, is something that we're going to be talking more and more about in the years to come. This is not so much a lesson. We put this out there, Joel and I put this together a year ago for our virtual workshop, because we wanted our virtual workshop attendees to see what we do when we have them here at Commercial Avenue. And so it's a 30-minute video that takes them through the putting together and commissioning of a PV system. And there you can see Joel laughing. I'm not sure if he's laughing at my biceps here, if he's laughing at something that Manny said, but we had a good time putting that video together. And we had nice feedback on this video from our participants. So if you want to have students see A to Z how a system needs to come together, this is your video. Okay, and maybe Jenny Clemens will want to say a little bit more about this one later on. This one was written by Jenny, and Jenny, I'm going to see, without looking deeply at the lesson, it looked to me like you're encouraging people to use this because you can put together an entire solar PV proposal A to Z using the Helioscope. So step in now or step in later and say something about that if you'd like to. I know less about that lesson because I'm not the author of that lesson. And then finally, under bioenergy, we've got dairy waste to power. And this is a lesson I wrote at the urging of a gentleman named Mike Moore, who I worked with at SolarWise. Took me the better part of an entire summer so that students and teachers could use how poo power, cow poop, can be used to create energy and sustainable byproducts. Absolutely fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Okay, so what do I have to say to you before we get to questions? If you use one of these lessons and you find a mistake, or if you have an idea for the improvement of a lesson, or you want to talk about how to use a lesson, you're not sure that it's usable in your classroom, or if you've got a suggestion for a new lesson, here is the email you want to get in contact with me through saltwater56@gmail.com. That is my email, and I'm going to leave that up there for a minute in case anybody wants to copy that down, because I was just telling Joel, I don't find that I'm, well, let's see. It'd be nice if I got a little bit more feedback on these lessons. Haven't gotten a lot yet. I do in our workshops, but I don't from users who are outside our workshops. Haven't gotten a lot of feedback. So I absolutely encourage your feedback, anything about these lessons. And with that, I am going to, there's our disclaimer once again. I'm going to turn this back to Joel. So I'll stop my share right here, and maybe I'll put my email back up later on if I'm requested to do so. So do we have questions? I see that there's a number in the chat.
Great, Scott. We don't have any questions yet in the chat. People were explaining what SCADA stands for. I can ask you a question I thought of while you were talking about that. You ran through those lessons very quickly. There's a wide range there. What if there's a teacher who's interested in one of those lessons, but doesn't feel like they're an expert, and so they're a little hesitant to use it, what would you suggest?
Okay. Thank you for the question. My suggestion, and especially if like any of you who are here now or anybody who's watching this later on, suggests a lesson to someone else, first of all, I absolutely encourage you to get in contact with me and talk it through. Almost all of the lessons are lessons that I have got classroom experience with, and oftentimes classroom experience at different levels. So I can suggest whether I think it might be appropriate for a 9th grade physical science class, or if I don't think it is, how it could be altered. I also want to remind you that going back to one of my main kind of theme points here today is, please take the lesson and consider taking it and making it your own with your students and with the materials that you have available in your class. And another thing that I would say, if you're not certain about how to use the lesson, is come to our workshop. So here's an advertisement for our workshop. Last summer, we did a virtual workshop. Ideally, this summer, we do a virtual workshop and an in-person workshop. And in that process, you will learn how to do a variety of these different lessons, and you will also build a solar PV system, just like you will see if you watch Joel's and my lesson, you'll see us do, and strengthen your learning in this area, and then you'll know whether you can use the lesson or not. So step 1, get in contact with me. Step 2, use materials, alter them, change them, and I'd absolutely consider coming to our workshop. We get great feedback from our instructors who attend, and they all use our lessons successfully after they've attended here. So I see Candace has some questions.
Hi.
Hi, Candace.
Hi. One of the questions I have.
Hello.
Okay. And one of the questions I have was regarding the standards. Like for me, it's really easy if I can just go down a list of standards and be like, I need projects and activities for that standard in a grid format. Do you have the projects and standards somewhere in a grid format where we can just go, I need to meet that standard, I'm looking for something in that area?
I don't. So that it sounds like that's a suggestion for something that could be useful to us. We used to have that within SolarWise, and we just didn't find that our teachers used it very often. So it sounds like you're making a pitch for that to be something that would be of use to you and perhaps other teachers, yes?
For me personally, but maybe not everybody, maybe it's not worth your trouble, but.
Okay, so what you're looking for, one of your starting points is you're looking at the standards first and then working back toward lessons from there.
In some instances, yeah. Some instances I know I have like a presentation that I know I'll do, but then I just don't have a great activity to get the energy up, get the interest up. And I like to actually do, if I can, an activity before I present my information to get them moving, doing something.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the short answer to your question is we don't have a grid like that. That will be Joel and Ken and I will be meeting this afternoon. That'll be one of our topics of conversation then.
Okay, another question I had was for the answer keys. I'm glad they're there. And you know, our students are very crafty. Are they easily accessible to students, the answer keys?
The answer is no. There is, so anything that needs to be password protected is, and so not. And we haven't had, and we talk about that. So I mean, students can probably go and find a lesson through the Create site, but they shouldn't be able to find the answer keys without the password that that you'll be given to get to them.
Okay. Sorry, just 2 more questions. They're fast.
Oh, please.
Is there a materials page? Because I got a little tiny stipend or whatever for, like, I could spend up to $500. And the good thing is I only have 13 students in my physical science class. And if I group them together, I can actually make that $500 stretch. Is there a list of, if you have a little bit of money to spend, buy these things first, and then I can run more of the lessons?
it looks like maybe Scott is frozen.
I don't know. I didn't know if it was me or.
Okay, it looks that way to me too. So I think what he would say, the short answer is, we don't have a list set up the way that you were suggesting. And I like that idea. There is a materials list for each lesson that does require some, some materials. But I like that idea of maybe coming up with a list saying, here's, if you have this much money to spend, if you get these materials, you'll be able to do these lessons. But we don't have that yet.
Yeah.
We'll put that on the list of things to discuss.
The reason I saw that is when I was buying some vernier sensors from a previous grant a couple years ago. They had in their book on the front, it was like here's the lessons that you use these sensors for. And I was like, I'll buy those sensors because I can do the most lessons,
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense.
And then I think this is probably, yes, there's going to be a slideshow, a recording of this, including
Yes.
the slides, because I liked those red things he had put across that said, this is what this lesson, like he had those red diagonal words. And I was like, oh, it kind of gave me the quick two-word summary or something. And so I thought, cool, and I'd love to pull that recording back up later.
Yes.
This is Gabby here. And it'll take me about a week to get the recording edited, and then it'll be up on the Create website, but I'll send out a email that when it's up on the website, and you'll have access to be able to either download it or view it on the website.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Are there other questions?
So I put a question in the chat, but really a suggestion. So I know we've been doing the kilowatt meters for years, but now we can get these little smart plugs. So for me, in our intro to energy class, we require our students to buy these because they're super cheap. And I put a link, I think a 4-pack's $30. And you can collect all the same data. I had all my Christmas lights on one of these, right? You turn it on and off on your phone. But in addition to, you can get, you can log the data as well. So with a kilowatt meter, you're only getting instantaneous data. So you have to look right away, but things like your refrigerator, is a compressor running or not? It's a very different number. So that's, I think, an opportunity for us to update some of the lessons with some of the, because now these are cheap, they're a 4-pack is $29. So, these are cheap so that students can take this home and actually log it on their phone.
You can put that on speaker.
Great. Thanks, Jennifer. Do you want to say a word about the Helioscope lesson?
Sure. So when I developed the Helioscope lesson, it's really like a second level of some of the other energy lessons. I always do that in my second solar class. I do it after they've really got a lot of experience with PV watts. So that's kind of like, for me, it's the second level class, but after the students really understand the basics of solar, how to use PV watts, then you can kind of get into that Helioscope. And Helioscope will give educators a free license for your semester and extend the free trial for your students. So that's why I use it, because I don't have to pay for it.
Terrific, thanks. Any other questions? Scott has joined me here on my computer, so he can fill in if I don't know the answers. Any other questions or comments?
Joel, this is Gabby again. I had put this in the chat, but I don't know if everybody saw this. So we do have, there was a thing about the SCADA lessons, and we do have 6 actual lessons that have now been added to the SCADA section. And we're going to have labs that will be added probably within the next 2 months. So there will be additional labs that will be added to the SCADA portion of the teaching resources too. But we do have 6 lessons that are in there also.
Excellent. Anything else?
This is JP Jones here. What about collaborating are you guys taking lessons back? You know, folks have modified them and creating a database to expand, or are you staying strictly with the ones that you put in?
Not sure then what's being asked there.
He's
so.
saying when a teacher takes a lesson and changes it or makes it their own, do we ask for them to send it back?
My answer to the question, that question would be no. What I would like to say though, you don't necessarily feel like you have to return it to us, but if you think you have an insight or you've come across something that definitely improves the lesson, or you've put a twist on it that we don't know about, let us know. Let us know. I mean, we'll do, like you saw, there's one lesson in the grouping that we have where we have 2 versions of it. We could potentially put another version of the lesson up there, or just improve the one that's up there to begin with. Does that answer your question, JP?
Yeah, I was just saying about more collaborative space, since you guys have kind of triggered. A lot of lessons are pretty basic, which is great, but there might be others of us out here with more experience, you know, in the real world experience that might want to share, or even our advisors may want to share.
Yeah. Oh, please get them back to us then. I mean, don't be shy about forwarding an idea or a thought about how a lesson can be improved or done differently. I see Jennifer has the question about updating the, which one is it here? Up a little bit further here. The cheapest watt, which is really, I think the way that one's written, it can be adapted to, I know it can be adapted to a number of different energy survey devices. I kind of like that one because it's cheap. And also, I thought in looking at some of the other kilowatt type devices that they actually oftentimes can give students more information than I'd like them to have. So in other words, I'd like them to, I want to force them to go through some calculations rather than just press a button. So Jennifer, if you've got an idea, please send it my way, specifically about that. So I don't know how in depth you've looked at the one that I've published, but that was kind of my thinking. I want to force the kids to crunch the numbers, and also that kilowatt meter is pretty inexpensive.
I think it was while you were offline, she mentioned a specific device. We can take a look at that later.
All right.
Yep. Any other questions or comments?
Oh, Scott, they want you to put your email in the chat. I might be able to do that. So
Yeah, saltwater T56. 56@gmail.com. Yep, there it is.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know what.
All right.
I just dropped off down there. So yeah, whatever.
If there are other questions, we'll take those now. If not, I want to thank all of you for joining us today for this webinar. And as Gabby mentioned, fairly soon in the next week, I believe, she'll have the recording posted up on the Create website, so you can take a look at that or share that with other people. One of the questions that came up, Scott, was somebody was wondering whether they could get the slides to go along with the recording, the slides that you use.
These slides.
Yes.
We'll make them available somehow. Gabby, maybe we should stay together here at the end and we'll find a way to make sure that happens.
Or if somebody wants those slides,
Yeah,
they could
you can-
email you.
Yeah,
right?
could email as well.
All right. Anything to add, Gabby?
I think we covered it all. You guys all have my email address also, because I've been in communication with you. So if you have additional questions, you can always reach out to me. And I have access to Joel, to Scott. So I always have the ability to get in touch with these guys if you have additional questions. So feel free to reach out.